alignment. We're going to compare two training methods, the 531 method and the Shaco method. The 531 method was created by Jim Wandler. He was a former elite powerlifter. Then he became a strength coach and developed a method to move away from the equipped lifting toward the more sustainable and raw strength. His philosophy was slow and steady progress. He prioritized long term sustainability, injury prevention, and gradual strength accumulation over the quick, unsustainable peaks. He came from the West Side Barbell School, and he moved to this type of training after that. The core principle is the training max, is a concept that he developed where all the percentages are based on a 90% of the true 1RM. So this is to ensure that all the reps are clean, fast, and executed with good form. And he structured the cycle in a 4-week mesocycle, 3 weeks of loading, progressive loading, followed by a 1 week of deload with the four main lifts: the squat, the bench press, deadlift, and the overhead press. This is basically the weekly breakdown. That's why it's called 531. On week 1, you'll do 3 by 5 on a 65, 75, and 85 of the training max. Week 2, you'll do from 70, 80, and 90. And week 3, you do 5, 3, and 1 at 75, 85, and 1 at 95 of your training max. Then you will use the 4th week to deload in ranges from 40 to 60% for recovery. He include the concept of as much reps as possible set, and this was on the final set of each main lift. You do as much reps as possible, and this was to provide like an auto-regulation and to ensure that the athletes know when the good days are and when the bad days are, because on the good days they can set a PR, and on the bad days at least they hit the minimum repetitions. He received some certain criticism because of the minimalistic approach of this training method, so he developed 531 Beyond in 2013, and he included some other auto-regulation tools like joker sets. If the as much reps as possible set felt easy, you could increase by 5 to 10% for additional sets. Another concept was the first set, last set, FSL, where you perform multiple sets, 3 to 5 of 5 to 8 reps using the weight from the first set. And you use a progression model of intensity, where after every mesocycle of 4 weeks, you would increase 2.5 kilos on the upper body and 5 kilos on the lower body. The Shaco method was created by Boris Shaco, the Russian national team power lifter. He produced many world champions using scientifically rigorous method, as all the Russian descendant training methods. The philosophy was that technique is a skill and that the movement patterns must be perfected through frequent practice, and strength is also viewed as a specific skill to be mastered through repetition. So all the Russian descendant training methods, it was founded on a scientific basis, on decades of Eastern European research, and it was focused on work capacity and high frequency practice. He used the block periodization structure. He basically structured into different blocks. The number 29 was the preparation, the 30 accumulation, 31 transmutation, and 32 realization. And this method was competition focused. Basically, this is just for Olympic athletes or professional powerlifter athletes. The volume is very high. It's from 200 to 400 lifts per week at an intensity above 50%. The average intensity, as much of all the Russian descendants, is above 70, except for the Bulgarian system that we already saw, and the lifts above 90% were typically programmed only near the peaking phase. Frequency, it was very frequent approach. The bench press was practiced 3 times a week, the squats 2 times a week, and the deadlift 1 time a week. He had a Russian classification system where all the athletes were classified from class 3 to master sport in international competition. This is to ensure the appropriate workload, and he had like a load variability where he utilizes distinct high, medium, and low stress days across the training days, weeks, and blocks. That's to manage fatigue. On a comparison here with the 531 and the Shaco method, you see that the weekly volume is low to moderate on the 531. It's very high on the Shaco method. The average intensity is 75 to 80%. It's a higher relative intensity on 531 and 70% on the Shaco method. This is to manage the fatigue and the amount of volume that they have. Time above 85% is very limited on the 531, but you can add the joker sets. On the Shaco method is minimal until the peaking phase. We already said that. The total lift per week is 30 to 50 lifts. On the 531, it's 200 to 400 on the Shaco. A very, very high load. The main lift frequency is 1 time per week on 531 and 2 to 3 times a week on the Shaco. It's a high exposure. The technical focus is moderate, and on Shaco it's extremely precision is the priority. And the skill development is on the 531 by a variation of the assistant work, or the assistant work basically, and on Shaco is basically by a frequency. The exercise variation is high on the 531 in many templates. On the Shaco is low, very specific variants. The technical focus intensity is extreme on the Shaco. The approach of the 531 is progressive overload, as we already said. It's steady monthly increases from 5 to 10 pounds, 2.5 to 5 kilos. You have auto-regulation sets, like the as much as possible sets to allow the athlete to push on good days and bare minimum on the bad days. It's an individual pace. The progression is dictated by the athlete capability. It's not a rigid calendar, and it's very sustainable. It's designed for long-term development without burnout or excessive fatigue, because the focus here is basically the sustainable long-term growth. Meanwhile, the Shaco approach, as I said, is basically for competition, for professional or Olympic competition, standardized on a block periodization. He have planned volume, fixed percentages, and rep schemes based on the athlete's classification. They look for super compensation on deliberate overreaching, followed by a taper, and that's to realize the maximal performance. And as I said, is what it was focused on competition. The 531 method is best for intermediate lifters. It's ideal for those with 1 to 3 years experience because they need certain structure but flexible progression. The time, they have limited time availability for professionals in different areas, amateur athletes, recreational athletes, because you can train 2 to 3 times a week on less than 45 minutes. It's good for in-season athletes because they have low systemic fatigue, and this is a gold standard for maintaining strength during the competition. You're not overloading the CNS, and for general strength, it's very good for the tactical athletes or teams. The primary demographic is athletic and general strength. The Sheiko is best for advanced athletes. It's necessary for those who have exhausted the linear gains and need higher volume to progress. For competitive power lifters. Um, it needs a high recovery capacity because this requires a robust and work capacity of life and lifestyle support. They need sleep, nutrition, and that's why I say this is basically for Olympic um, weightlifters or professional powerlifters. The off season is good for the off season training because you can dedicate strength blocks when the sport practice is minimal. Basically, here are different sports and what they prioritize, like rugby and American football. They prioritize on maximal strength for collision and dominance and contact resilience, and they need robust joint integrity. And this is going to make sense with with another with another diapositive that I have after this. Basketball requires explosive power production, vertical force expression, and deceleration capabilities. The wrestling and all combat sports, it's focused on much more relative strength to weight ratio and muscular endurance. The track and field, they have high demands of rate of force development, and it has a technical transfer to the sport movements. The method of application is the 531 method. Is ideal for in season, and this is because the low fatigue allows for high quality sport practice, and the shake up method is best suited for the off season. So the 531 for the power sports, it's good because it lowers systemic fatigue and that enable higher quality of sport practice and skill work. A similar integration of jumps, throws, and sprints before the main lift. It's very flexible and it's good and better suited for rate of force development, emphasized by plyometrics. For example, basketball players. The Sheiko for power sports. This builds massive and absolute strength based on superior technical mastery, high central nervous system demand and volume, and this may blunt speed and power output. Is utilized in the off season and is ideal for position requiring mass and force, like rugby forwards, and is well used for rugby. So, in the off season, the 531 method is a recommendation based, two to three, two to three, 2 to 3 full cycles to build strength. Focus on hypertrophy assistance, boring but big, and power accessories. The Sheiko method is for advanced athletes only, and you complete a 16-week full cycle for maximal strength. The preseason, the 531 method reduces the assistant volumes. You keep and maintain the intensity on the main lift and shift to more sport specific movements. How you use the Sheiko, the taper is required here on the preseason because you decrease the volume significantly and you transition to maintain you do a transition to maintenance the loads, and you have to be closely monitoring the fatigue. The in season, the best choice would be the 531 method. It's the ideal protocol. It's only 2 weeks, two days a week on a template, low volume, high intensity, and that's to maintain strength with minimal fatigue. And the Sheiko method is avoidable here. It's not recommended because of the volume and the stress it puts on the central nervous system. So and this is the correspondence with the other diapositive I have before is the rugby and football. And in season, you can use the 531 for maintenance, and the off season, as we said, the Sheiko. The basketball is much more emphasis on a 531 power plus power, and wrestling and combat sports is a year round. You can do a modified 531, and this is crucial for fatigue management and weight class maintenance. This is because you avoid high volume hypertrophy. Sometimes you've been called with just 4 weeks for a fight, so you need to be ready in that amount of time. And so that's why it's very usable, the 531 method here. On the track and field, on the off season, you can use easily the Sheiko for maximal force base, and the in season you make a transition for the 531. And the military and tactical, for the sustainability, it's better to use the 531. So the 531 method is defined by a minimalistic, sustainable, and flexible approach. It excels for general athletes and those with limited time, and specifically for the in-season strength and maintenance, where the fatigue management is critical. The Sheiko method is characterized by high volume, high frequency, technical mastery. Is a superior choice for advanced athletes, for advanced lifters, and it's more use on the off-season blocks when recovery and resources can be fully prioritized. The context, it really matters here, because both systems are highly effective when properly matched to the athlete's training age, individual recovery capacity, sport specific demands, and the current season phases. And you can use a strategic integration of these methods, because they are not exclusive. They are not mutually exclusive. Most of the long-term strategy often involves sequencing them across the training year. So you use the Sheiko for a base and 531 for realization and maintenance. You can start with 531 if you're new to structured strength programming, you have limited time, you're in a competitive sport season, and need sustainable long-term slow gains. You can progress to Sheiko if there's specific competitive powerlifting goals, you have high capacity to train time, you have a dedicated off-season training block, and you have strong technique, foundation, and recovery. And you can use a hybrid approach, applying the 531 principles with an increased frequency, or use the Sheiko style volume but with auto-regulation. Also, you can use the block periodization across the seasons. And here are the bibliography that I use for this presentation. Thank you very much.